Week 3 of 12 boots in 12 weeks, my personal challenge, comes partly from the tropics of the Northern Territory. G'day, welcome back to Bootlosophy, and if we haven't met before, I have no idea why we haven't. My name is Tech. I am filming in Larrakia country, so I acknowledge the Larrakia traditional custodians of the Darwin area, and later on I'll be filming back home in Perth, so I also acknowledge the Whadjuk people who are the traditional custodians of the Perth area. Now, this is week 3 of my personal 12 weeks in 12 boots challenge. So, which is partly spent in Darwin and partly spent back in Perth. So, if you don't know, this challenge is about me choosing 12 pairs of boots out of my extensive collection of around 140 pairs, because I wanted to really see what I could do in terms of a small collection. As I gradually sell off my boots, go and check out my website, bootlosophy.com. Some of them are already there, and I'll continue to put others on the sale platform. And in fact, what I'm going to do as of this year is I'm going to put 50% of the proceeds into the Canteen charity, which is a charity for children suffering from cancer. Right, so that sets up the scene. 12 boots in 12 weeks, and I'm going to bring them to you. If you want to see what I've done so far, this is week 3. Go and look at the setup and the first 2 weeks in my channel. Look for a playlist called 12 Boots in 12 Weeks. Okay, we're going to go back to Perth for the early boots. Now, the first boot I'm going to discuss is this NYX Overlander boot. I've been wearing this every day. In fact, I think since I started the challenge, I have worn the NYX Overlander the most frequently, but not the most number of hours. What I've done is I've worn them every day to go for a walk in the mornings, 30-40 minute walk with my wife. And then on the odd days, I might have had them on my feet for a bit longer. But this week, I had a really long hiking session with this boot. The first time, in fact, that I've had them on a hiking session since my holiday in Hobart, which I think you should have seen by now. I think that was last week, which is why this week's report is a little bit delayed. Depending on when I video certain things, they take a little while to actually appear on the channel, because depending on what they are, some of them will take quite a while to edit because I have to splice things in, take B-roll, all that sort of thing. And also if I have unboxings in between, those tend to come first while I edit the others a bit later. So in order then, this NYX boot I've worn for a week in Hobart, spent quite a lot of time hiking in them. And this week, apart from all those morning walks that I've had with my wife, I finally took them for a 5-hour walk. Now, I drove out to John Forrest National Park. My wife couldn't come with me. She wasn't feeling well. And I went on a walk along a trail that I actually know quite well. And it's usually about a 5-hour walk around the trail. But this time I wanted to be a little bit faster because it was winter. And there's a loop in the trail. And I thought what I'd do is I'd cut across country through the forest to get on the other side of the loop. Now, I'm actually an experienced bushwalker. And I had with me a compass, my GPS, maps. But what had happened, I think, was when I set my GPS, I think I set it to the wrong coordinates, which is a bit further away, because I marked certain points on that trail. Because after 20 minutes, when I was expecting to catch the trail on the other side of the loop, I was still in the forest. And when I realized that I may have set the wrong away point, I got a bit worried, because I thought if I ignored the GPS, I might end up walking in circles. And the problem with the Australian bush, the forest anyway, is that there's not a lot of secondary growth, because it's been burnt off to get rid of fuel in the beginning of last summer. And the undergrowth is just beginning to grow again in the winter rains. Not huge, but the problem is the trees. It really is the reverse of you can't see the trees for the wood. So I decided what I'd do is go back to the old school, flipped open my compass, set due north, and walk due north, because I knew that being an enclosed trail, I'd hit the edge one way or the other. So instead of a 4-hour walk, because I didn't want a 5-hour walk, it turned out to be almost a 5-hour walk. Anyway, got home all right. One of the things I found about wearing this on that trail, it's quite amazing, because walking through that in between bit to cut out the loop, I would walk through terrain that I'd look back and go, wow, that was pretty tough going and it's rough. And I didn't feel a thing in these boots. Absolutely fantastic. I thought I'd change this up a little bit this week though, and tell you about the conditioning I did last week. I think I reported that last week. I used Red Wings all natural leather conditioner, which doesn't have mink oil, but I think has a bit of neat's foot oil, I believe. And having conditioned it on this waxed flesh, it really has absorbed into the waxed flesh much, much more on the Spokane reverse waxed flesh than on the Chrome Excel waxed flesh versions, where I'm certain they put much thicker coat of wax on. And this has become extremely supple in the shaft, but still protective. It's absorbed into it was a little bit tacky at the end of last week, but this week it's just absorbed in, and it's absolutely beautiful. Very, very protective in the bush. So that was the first boot. The second boot I wore this week is the Wootten Smith boot. And the way I treated my Blundstones last week, where I had them by the end of the couch and pulled them on when I wanted to go take the rubbish out, or go get the mail, or go to the shops, go to the pub even, I used the Wootten boots this week. I've already explained how comfortable it is, and it is such an easy boot to pull on and pull off. What I wanted to tell you about was the burnishing. I think I'd said either last week or the week before that the wax burnishing that Jess had put on was beginning to flake off a little bit, and I don't mind that. But I thought, what if I just tried to burnish it myself with a bit of wax? So I used a bit of waxy conditioner called Darwin, which is an Indonesian brand that you can get out of Bandung. It's quite a waxy paste, so I used that to go over the burnishing that Jess had done. And as you can see, I think it's quite a good job. It's really flattened down that nap again to make it look burnished. It's darkened a bit of that area, and it looks a really nice sort of variation in color. As for the patina itself, I think I'm beginning to see the wearing of that patina on this boot. Particularly, I think, around the heels and across the folds on the vamp. I'm also catching a little bit of indigo on the tops of the shafts. Also wearing this much more often than I had been before after my breaking in of these boots. I'm beginning to get used to this gap. Again, I explained earlier that it felt as if it might have been a bit loose around the ankle, because I'm used to a Chelsea boot that either comes higher or where there's no gap and everything's quite tight. And it felt a bit loose, but it's tight in the vamp, on the instep, it's tight around the heel, no heel slip. So there was no danger of it coming off. And I'm beginning to get used to this feeling. And I quite like it. It's quite freeing. Okay, so this week I used less boots because I thought there's no point in having 12 boots and wearing one different one every day. I've really got to get used to some of these, so I've reduced the choices. So the next boot, I cheated. I'll tell you what happened on Monday and today, Wednesday, but on Tuesday, I had done an unboxing of this over the weekend, and I couldn't help myself. This is not one of the 12 boots on my list, but I couldn't help myself. I just had to wear them to the office on Tuesday. This is from Herring in Devonshire in England, Herring Shoes. Fantastic brand, actually. This is made by Barker for them. So a good Northampton maker, a really good customer service company down in Devon. Love the feel. I'll bring you a review of this once you've seen the unboxing, which I'm not quite sure when it's going to come up, probably after this video. But that was a cheat. In reality, over the week in the office, I went back to the Rudiger. Getting more and more comfortable, obviously. I think there is a definite difference in the shell cordovan as produced by Horween and the shell cordovan that's used by Alden. The more and more I wear this, the more and more I'm sure that Alden's finishing of the shell cordovan puts something on top of it, something proprietary. I think Nick Horween had said they wouldn't even tell him. But it's clearly a darker color and it's clearly a shinier color. The more I wear this, the more I get it wet, it loses a bit of that sleek shine, but I like it. It's become it's not shiny, but it has luster, which is quite a different look to the shiny Alden Color 8 shell. And if you don't believe this is Horween, there's a great big Horween stamp there. I'm hoping you can see that. So the adventures with this boot, I wore them twice during the weekday. I was trying to do a high-low dressing experiment to see what would go with this. And my conclusion is that they go really well with dark denim, not so well with mid-wash denim. They're just a little too formal looking. Interesting thing, when I put this up on Instagram, people were saying this light sort of natural color wasn't formal. You know, I grew up wearing suits. I'm 67. I've been wearing suits since I was 18 when I started work in a London accountancy firm. And a London accountancy firm in those days, in the 70s, was very formal. Forget brown suits, forget brown shoes, forget tan shoes. You wore either black shoes, well, in fact, you only wore black shoes, and you wore either navy, black, or grey suits. Three-piece, double-breasted, definitely not something like this. So I think people who said to me, oh no, I think that spoils the formal look, it's too light, they're kind of harking back to the 70s in my view. We're not as conservative people in dressing these days, really. Lovely boot, I'm liking it. So those were the boots I wore in Perth. It's Wednesday, that was Saturday to Wednesday I was wearing those boots. I'm off to Darwin tomorrow, and I'll bring you the next segment of this video about what I wore in Darwin. See you later. And here I am back in Darwin. So the end of the week, we flew up here, my wife and I flew up here on Thursday, and I was wearing these, the chukka boots, or more correctly, the desert boots, which is a subset of chukka boots from Crown Northampton, called the Woodford, in beautiful Charles F. Stead snuff suede. So I wore these on Thursday on the plane. I wore them on Friday, and today is Saturday, where I'm having a bit of a relaxing time, even though we'll go out in a little while wearing these. I find these extremely versatile. Particularly up here in the tropics, you can wear them with chinos and look quite cool and relaxed in a sort of light khaki chinos. But you can also wear them with shorts. Now, I know this could be shocking, but you can wear them with no-show socks or even no socks with shorts. And I think they come out quite nice and relaxed as a boot. And for those of you who don't know, I've actually completely removed all of my shoes and I no longer have a shoe collection. So I find these very comfortable. I mean, the crepe rubber sole is always ugly, but that's as it happens. I find these very comfortable. I'm starting to get a bit used to the very lightly structured toe, because I think I'd said earlier in one of my earlier reports that I was feeling that this applies not a pressure, but a certain sense of being there on the top of my toes, which doesn't usually happen if it's a structured toe, unless it's really tight. I'm getting used to that. I'm also getting used to the fact that the insole is just flat. There is no perceivable arch support, and there is no shank, as you can see. But that brings its own advantages because it's just a soft, you know, really, really connected pair of boots to wear. So I'm beginning to more and more like this. Okay. Well, there you go. I'm going to close off my week 3 report now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click on the like button. Don't forget, big thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, do consider subscribing. Go and check out my other videos on my channel. I usually bring you proper reviews of boots, noting the history of the boot maker and taking you through the construction of any particular boot that I'm reviewing. So go check them out and subscribe. Now, I'm doing a boot review next week, and then following that the day after, I'll bring you week 4. So keep watching. Take care out there. Look after yourselves.